They laughed at me during my sister's wedding. Then I casually mentioned I own the apartment building they all live in and had just filed eviction notices for non-payment of rent. Hey lovely people! Subscribe to be part of this family and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. With that, let's continue the story. I stood in the corner of the reception hall, champagne flute trembling in my hand, watching my younger sister Julia twirl in her $1,000 wedding dress. The dress I'd secretly helped pay for. Nobody knew that, of course. They never knew about the money I quietly funneled to Mama's account every month, the bills I covered, the dreams I made possible for everyone but myself. Look at her over there. My cousin Tasha's voice cut through the music. She wasn't whispering. Dressed like she going to a job interview instead of a wedding. Girl still can't get it right. The laughter rippled through my family like a wave. My Aunt Regina, Uncle Harold, cousins I'd grown up with, all of them joined in. Even Mama glanced my way with that familiar look of disappointment before turning back to admire Julia's choreographed first dance. I looked down at my navy blue dress. Professional, yes. Elegant, I'd thought. But compared to their designer outfits and flashy jewelry, I was invisible. Plain. The family disappointment who'd chosen numbers over nurturing, spreadsheets over settling down. 32 and still single, my sister Liliana announced to the table, loud enough for half the room to hear. Working herself to death for what? Some sad little apartment somewhere. More laughter. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to breathe. They didn't know. None of them knew. And watching them now, dripping in borrowed luxury, living in units they hadn't paid for in months, I wondered if telling them would change anything at all. The DJ called for family photos. I stayed in my corner, clutching my champagne, invisible as always. Julia found me by the dessert table an hour later, her face flushed with happiness and champagne. For a moment she looked like the little girl I used to braid hair for, the one who'd cry if I left for college. You having fun, Connie? She asked, but her eyes were already scanning the room for someone more important. Beautiful wedding, I said softly. You look stunning. Thanks to Mama, she gushed. She paid for everything. Can you believe it? The venue, the dress, the catering. She said I deserved a fairy tale. My stomach dropped. Mama paid for everything. With what money? The woman hadn't worked in 5 years, living off disability checks that barely covered groceries. But I said nothing, just smiled and nodded like I always did. You know what Mama said? Julia leaned in conspiratorially. She said you offered to help, but she told you no because she wanted to do this herself. That's real love, sis. A mother's love. The lie sat between us like broken glass. I'd put $15,000 in Mama's account 2 months ago. Called it an early Christmas gift. Told her to use it however she needed. And she'd used it to throw Julia a wedding while telling everyone, including Julia, that I'd offered nothing. That's Mama, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Julia squeezed my arm and disappeared back into the crowd. I watched her go, surrounded by family who loved her effortlessly, naturally, the way they'd never loved me. The smart one. The difficult one. The one who left for college and came back different, speaking proper, forgetting where she came from. Except I never forgot. I just wasn't allowed to belong anymore. The bathroom was my sanctuary. I locked myself in a stall and finally let the tears come, quiet and controlled. Even my crying had to be professional now. My phone buzzed. A text from my property manager, James. Heads up. Renaissance Arms is at 87% non-payment this month. Multiple units months behind. Need to discuss eviction proceedings Monday. Renaissance Arms. The luxury apartment building I'd purchased 3 years ago as an investment property. 48 units of renovated beauty in a gentrifying neighborhood. I'd kept my ownership anonymous through an LLC, preferring to let James handle the face-to-face interactions while I managed the business side. I scrolled through the delinquent tenant list he'd sent last week, my heart sinking with each familiar name. Unit 12, Regina and Harold Thompson. 4 months behind. Unit 23, Tasha Williams. 3 months. Unit 31, Liliana Mitchell. My own sister. 5 months behind, accumulating late fees she ignored. They'd all moved in 2 years ago, thrilled by the affordable luxury, the renovated kitchens, the rooftop terrace. They'd bragged about their new addresses at every family gathering, never once asking how I was doing, where I lived, if I needed anything. I'd given them below-market rent as a silent gift, and they'd stopped paying anyway, assuming some faceless corporation would never notice, never care. I typed back to James, "Proceed with evictions for all units over 90 days delinquent. No exceptions." My finger hovered over send. Could I really do this? To family? Then I remembered Julia's words. She said you offered to help, but she told you no. I pressed send. I emerged from the bathroom with fresh makeup and a practiced smile. The reception was in full swing, my family dancing and drinking like they didn't have a care in the world. Like they hadn't spent the last decade treating me like an obligation instead of a person. Uncle Harold grabbed the microphone, calling for speeches. One by one, family members stood to toast Julia and her new husband, sharing stories that painted our family as close-knit, loving, supportive. Each word felt like a knife. "And now," Uncle Harold announced, scanning the room, "we'll hear from the bride's sisters. Liliana, come on up." Liliana bounded to the microphone in her expensive heels, probably unpaid for like her rent, and delivered a perfect speech about growing up with Julia, their unbreakable bond, their mother's sacrifices. She didn't mention me once. "Anyone else?" Uncle Harold looked directly at me. "Connie, you got anything to say?" The room fell silent. All eyes on me, waiting to see if the awkward sister would embarrass herself, say something inappropriate, remind everyone why she didn't quite fit. I stood slowly, my legs steadier than I expected. Walked to the microphone. Looked out at 43 faces. Family who'd taken my money, my support, my silent sacrifices, and given me nothing but contempt in return. "I'm so happy for Julia," I began, my voice clear. "She deserves every beautiful thing. And I hope this fairy tale lasts forever." I paused, meeting Mama's eyes across the room. "Because fairy tales," I continued softly, "are a lot easier to believe than the truth." I handed back the microphone and walked away, leaving confused silence in my wake. I made it to my car before Mama caught up with me. She moved fast for a woman who claimed disability, her heels clicking across the parking lot like gunshots. "What the hell was that?" she demanded, grabbing my arm. "You trying to ruin your sister's day?" I stared at her hand on my arm, remembering all the times she'd grabbed me like this. When I said I wanted to go to college. When I came home speaking differently. When I started wearing clothes that didn't come from the clearance rack. "Let go of me," I said quietly. "You ungrateful," she started, but I cut her off. "Ungrateful." The word came out like a laugh. "Mama, I gave you $15,000 for this wedding. You told Julia you paid for it yourself. You told her I didn't offer to help." Her face shifted, anger replacing surprise. "That money was a gift. You said I could use it however I wanted." "I did," I agreed. "But you didn't have to lie about where it came from. You didn't have to make me look selfish in front of my own sister." "Oh, here we go." Mama rolled her eyes. "Everything's always about you, isn't it? Can't just let your sister have one day without making it about your feelings." "My feelings?" My voice cracked. "Mama, when's the last time you asked how I was doing? When's the last time anyone in there," I gestured to the reception hall, "treated me like I mattered? Like I was family instead of an A-team? That's what this is about. Money." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You think throwing money around makes you better than us? You left, Connie. You chose those white folks at that fancy college over your own people. Don't act surprised when we treat you like the outsider you made yourself." The words hit like a physical blow. There was the truth I'd always suspected but never heard spoken aloud. "I sent money home every month during college," I whispered. "Every month for 10 years after. I never left. You pushed me out." Mama's expression didn't change. "You made your choice. Now let your sister enjoy hers." She walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot watching my family through the windows. Dancing. Laughing. Together. Without me. I didn't go back inside. Instead, I sat in my car for an hour, watching through the windows as my family celebrated without noticing my absence. Not one person came looking for me. Not one text asking if I was okay. My phone buzzed again. James, got the eviction list. Should I schedule process server for Monday? These are going to be tough ones. Families with kids, long-term tenants. Want to review before we proceed. I stared at the message, then pulled up the full tenant file. Unit 12. Aunt Regina and Uncle Harold with their 3 teenage children. Unit 23. Tasha, single mother of 2. Unit 31. Liliana, my sister who just moved in, her boyfriend and his daughter. They all had children. They all had families. They'd all stopped paying rent the moment they felt comfortable, the moment they decided the rules didn't apply to them. Just like they'd decided I didn't deserve basic respect, basic acknowledgement, basic love. I scrolled through our family text thread from the past month. Messages about Julia's wedding, asking who could contribute to the bar fund, the party favors, the honeymoon gift. My name appeared once. Don't bother asking Connie, you know she won't help with family stuff. But I'd helped. I'd given Mama enough money to cover all of it and more. And she'd let them believe I'd given nothing. My therapist's voice echoed in my head. You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Especially when they're the ones who lit the match. I'd been in therapy for 2 years, working through the family dynamics I'd spent a lifetime accepting as normal. The scapegoating. The emotional manipulation. The way love in my family came with price tags and conditions I could never quite meet. I typed back to James, send the evictions. All of them. Monday morning. This time I didn't hesitate before pressing send. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I sat in my downtown office, the one I'd built from nothing, the success my family dismissed as selling out, and waited for the calls I knew would come. My phone started ringing at 9:47 a.m. Liliana's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then Uncle Harold. Aunt Regina. One after another, my family discovered that their gracious landlord, the mysterious LLC they'd been dodging, had filed eviction notices for all of them. The voicemails piled up. Angry. Confused. Titled. Not one of them apologetic about the thousands in unpaid rent. Just outraged that they were facing consequences. By noon they'd figured it out. Tasha called again, and this time I answered. Are you serious right now? She screamed into the phone. You own Renaissance Arms? You've been our landlord this whole time. Yes, I said simply. And you're evicting us? Your own family? Over some rent. You haven't paid rent in 3 months, Tasha. That's not some rent. That's nearly $5,000 you owe. We're family, she shrieked. Family doesn't do this to each other. The hypocrisy was so thick I could choke on it. You're right, I said calmly. Family doesn't. Family shows up. Family asks how you're doing. Family doesn't laugh at you at your sister's wedding while living rent-free in properties you own. Rent-free. She sounded genuinely confused. We've been paying. The rent's just been tight lately with everything. Tasha, you moved in 23 months ago. You've paid rent for 11 of those months. You're not a little behind. You're a chronic non-payer who assumed there would never be consequences. Silence. Then, wait until Mama hears about this. You're going to destroy this family over money? I'm not destroying anything, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. I'm just stopping the destruction of myself. I hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Mama this time. I sent it to voicemail and returned to my spreadsheets, where numbers made sense and relationships came with clear terms and expectations. They showed up at my office at 2 p.m. All of them. Mama, Liliana, Aunt Regina, Uncle Harold, even Tasha with her kids in tow. My receptionist, bless her, tried to stop them, but family doesn't take no for an answer. They burst into my office like a storm, voices overlapping in accusations and demands. How could you do this to us? We're your family. You think you're better than us now? Those kids need a place to live. I stood behind my desk, hands flat on the polished wood, and waited for them to run out of steam. It took 5 minutes of yelling before they realized I wasn't engaging, wasn't defending myself, wasn't reacting. Are you done? I asked quietly. Mama stepped forward, her face a mask of righteous fury. You will stop this eviction nonsense right now. We are your family. You don't treat family like this. You're right, I said. I don't. But you do. Excuse me. You treat family like ATMs. Like props for your celebrations. Like something to be ashamed of when they don't fit your definition of success. I looked at each of them, these people I'd loved my entire life. When's the last time any of you asked about my life? My dreams? Whether I was happy or struggling or just existing? Oh, here we go with the victim act, Liliana snapped. You're successful, Connie. You have money. What do you have to struggle with? You're living in my building rent-free and you're asking me what I struggle with? I laughed, but it came out broken. I struggle with watching my family take and give nothing back. Not even basic respect. We didn't know you owned the building, Uncle Harold said, but his voice was defensive, not apologetic. Would it have mattered? I met his eyes. If you'd known, would you have paid your rent? Or would you have just felt more entitled to live for free? The silence answered for him. Let's talk about money, I said, pulling out a folder I'd prepared that morning. My hands were shaking, but my voice stayed steady. Since apparently that's all I'm good for. I laid out printed bank statements on my desk. In the past 5 years, I've given this family over $200,000. Mama's medical bills, $73,000. Liliana's car when hers broke down, $12,000. Uncle Harold's business loan, $25,000, which was never repaid. Tasha's kids' private school tuition, $15,000. Julia's wedding, $15,000. Should I continue? They stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. I never asked for that money back, I continued. Never mentioned it. Never held it over anyone's heads. I gave it because I thought that's what family did. But apparently I was wrong about what family means to you. You gave that freely, Mama said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. You can't throw gifts back in people's faces. You're right. But you can stop giving to people who only take. I pulled out another document. This is the total unpaid rent from Renaissance Arms for just the units occupied by our family. $47,000. 9 months of free housing across 5 units. Tell me, Mama, if I'd walked into your house and taken $47,000 from your purse, would that be okay because we're family? That's not the same thing, Aunt Regina protested. It's exactly the same thing. You took something that didn't belong to you and expected no consequences because of who I am to you. So what, you're just going to put us on the street? Tasha's voice cracked. My babies need a home, Connie. Your babies need a mother who pays her rent, I said, and the harshness in my voice surprised even me. You make $58,000 a year, Tasha. I gave you below market rent specifically so you could afford it. You're not struggling. You're choosing to spend your money on other things and expecting me to absorb the cost. You don't know what it's like, she started, but I cut her off. I know exactly what it's like. I was a single woman putting herself through college while sending money home to a family that called me a sellout. Don't talk to me about struggle. The room fell into a heavy silence. My nephew Caesar, Aunt Regina's oldest, spoke up from the doorway where he'd been standing quietly. She's right, he said softly. Everyone turned to stare at him. We treat her like crap and expect her to keep giving. That's messed up. Harold, stay out of this, his mother snapped. No. He stepped forward, his teenage voice cracking with emotion. Auntie Connie is the only one who came to my robotics competition last year. Not y'all, just her. She paid for my SAT prep course. She's the one who talks to me about college like I can actually go. We support you, Uncle Harold started, but his son cut him off. You tell me we can't afford college. That I should be grateful for community college. But we're living in a luxury apartment not paying rent? That math doesn't add up, Dad. The betrayal on my brother-in-law's face was painful to watch. But Caesar wasn't done. Every family dinner y'all talk about Auntie Connie like she's the problem. Like she thinks she's better than us. But she's the only one who treats me like my dreams matter. His voice broke. And we're really gonna stand here and act like she's wrong for wanting us to pay for where we live? Tears streamed down my face. Someone saw me. After all these years, someone actually saw me. Liliana moved toward her nephew, but he stepped back. I'm going to be just like her when I grow up, he said firmly. Successful and far away from this toxicity. Harold. Aunt Regina's voice was sharp with warning, but the damage was done. The truth, once spoken, couldn't be unspoken. I think you all should leave, I said quietly. The eviction stands. You have 30 days to either pay what you owe or vacate. Connie, Mama reached for me, but I moved away. I'm done, Mama. I'm done being the bad guy in a story where I'm the only one trying to do right. They filed out slowly, the weight of consequences finally settling on their shoulders. Only Caesar looked back, mouthing thank you before his mother pulled him away. I collapsed into my chair and wept. The next 2 weeks were brutal. My phone never stopped ringing. Family members I hadn't heard from in years suddenly crawling out of the woodwork to tell me how wrong I was, how family comes first, how I should be ashamed. The family text thread exploded with messages about my betrayal. Screenshots of my cruel eviction notices circulated like wanted posters. Cousins who'd never spoken to me directly were suddenly posting vague Facebook statuses about fake people who forget where they come from. But something else happened too. Messages started coming from unexpected places. Caesar texted, "My mom won't let me talk to you, but I wanted you to know you're my hero. I'm applying to the same college you went to." A cousin from my father's side reached out. "I left the family group chat years ago because of how they treated you. Proud of you for standing up for yourself." Even my elderly grandmother, Mama's mother, called from down south. "About time somebody stopped letting those fools walk all over them. Your grandfather would be proud." The support was surprising, a lifeline I hadn't known I needed. But it didn't ease the pain of losing my immediate family, the people I'd loved despite everything. On day 16, Julia called. I almost didn't answer. "I didn't know," she said without preamble. "About the money. About any of it. Mama told me she'd been saving for years." "I know," I said tiredly. "She lied to you too. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me believe?" Her voice cracked. "I thanked Mama at my wedding. I gave this whole speech about her sacrifices while you stood there knowing the truth. Because you loved her in that moment. I didn't want to take that away. But you let me make you the villain. I said those things, Connie. About you not helping, about you being too focused on work. And you just took it. I've been taking it my whole life," I said simply. "What's one more day?" The silence on the other end was deafening. "I don't know how to fix this," Julia finally whispered. "You can't," I said gently. "That's what I'm learning. You can't fix people who don't think they're broken." The 30-day deadline arrived like a storm. James called me that morning with the update. 2 units paid in full. 3 are packing. 2 are refusing to leave, Liliana and your Aunt Regina. They're claiming familial exemption and threatening to squat. "There's no such thing as familial exemption," I said flatly. "I know. But they're banking on you backing down to avoid the publicity. Regina's threatening to go to the local news, paint you as the heartless landlord evicting her own family." My hands clenched around the phone. After everything, they still thought I'd fold. Still believed that somewhere deep inside I was the same girl who swallowed her hurt to keep the peace. "Proceed with the legal eviction," I said. "Both units. If they want to make this public, let them. I have documentation of every unpaid rent notice, every warning, every opportunity one gave them to make this right." "Are you sure?" "Once this goes public." "I'm sure. Let them tell their story. I'll tell mine." And they did go public. Aunt Regina gave a tearful interview to the local news station, painting herself as the victim of a ruthless landlord who happened to be family. She brought her kids, talked about their struggles, made it seem like I was evicting them over a single missed payment. But I'd learned something in business. Documentation beats narrative every time. I released a statement through my lawyer, along with years of bank records showing the money I'd given, the below-market rent I'd charged, the months of non-payment I'd absorbed. I included the text messages, ones where they called me selfish while living rent-free in my building. The public opinion shifted quickly. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain. I was the successful woman who'd been taken advantage of by her own family. The story went semi-viral in our city, sparking debates about family obligations and toxic relationships. But the vindication felt hollow. Because at the end of the day I'd still lost them. 6 months later, I stood in the empty Unit 31 Liliana's old apartment. The eviction had been finalized 3 months ago. She'd left it in ruins, a final act of spite. Holes in the walls. Broken fixtures. A message spray-painted in the bedroom, "Family traitor." I ran my fingers over the words, feeling nothing. That was the strangest part, the absence of pain. Where there used to be an open wound, there was just scar tissue now. My phone rang. Caesar. Calling from his new number. "Auntie? I got in. Full scholarship. I'm going to college." "That's amazing, baby," I said, and genuine joy bloomed in my chest. "I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. The SAT prep, the application help, just believing in me." He paused. "Mom says I'm not supposed to talk to you, but you're the only family I want at my graduation." I pressed my hand to the wall, steadying myself. "I'll be there. Front row." After we hung up, I walked through the empty apartment one last time. This building, these units, had been my attempt to give my family something better. A way to lift them up while protecting myself with professional boundaries. But you can't boundary your way into being loved by people determined to see you as the enemy. I'd learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes loving yourself means accepting that others won't. Sometimes protecting your peace means walking away from the people who taught you what love was supposed to look like. As I locked the apartment for the last time, I thought about what I'd lost. A family that never really claimed me, and what I'd gained. Self-respect, boundaries, and the courage to stop setting myself on fire to keep others warm. I didn't see Mama, Liliana, or most of my family again. They chose pride over reconciliation, victimhood over accountability. And I chose myself. In the end, that choice made all the difference. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Hit that notification bell for more stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your power. You deserve better than people who make you feel small.